What if the race to be a good parent is the very thing holding us back from becoming one? In Bluey's baby race, we don't just watch babies learn to crawl or walk. We witness something far more fragile, a mother learning how to trust herself. It's a story about milestones, yes, but hidden inside is something deeper. It's a gentle, radiant truth about comparison, pressure, and what it really means to be enough. From the very first frame of Baby Race, we're pulled into a world that feels playful and harmless. Monkey bars, laughter, and a simple question from Bluey. Am I better than her? A childish question, maybe, but also an echo of something we all ask, quietly, inwardly. What starts as a comparison of playground skills soon unfolds into something deeper, a story of first steps, yes, but also of invisible pressure, silent competition, and the sinking fear that we're somehow doing it all wrong. Because the baby race isn't just for babies, it's for the parents. The ones watching from the sidelines, pretending not to keep score. The ones who measure love in milestones and feel panic when their child falls behind. And at the center of it all is Chilli, telling a bedtime story with a soft voice and a nervous smile. But beneath her calm narration is something unspoken, pride that slowly curdles into panic, joy that twists into quiet judgment, not of others, but of herself. And it all starts with something deceptively simple. Bluey rolls over too early, a proud moment, of course, a brag-worthy milestone. But when early becomes special, it also becomes a standard. And the moment other babies start crawling, standing, walking, while Bluey still shuffles, that standard becomes a shadow. And it's in that shadow that the deeper emotional truth begins to form. Because Baby Race isn't really about babies learning to walk. It's about parents learning to let go. Chilli's journey through this episode quietly reflects a truth that many adults carry but rarely name: the weight of comparison. The scoreboard we keep in our heads. The secret belief that if our child isn't hitting their marks on time, we're somehow doing something wrong. And this anxiety isn't just about motor skills. It shows up in sleep schedules, bottle versus breast, daycare versus stay at home. Every tiny decision becomes a marker in an invisible race, one we never meant to join, but one that still runs in the background of our minds. Chilli doesn't want to admit she's racing. It's not a race, she says aloud. But later, when she's honest with herself, she whispers the truth. It was a race, and I wanted to win. Not out of ego, not out of vanity, out of longing. Because when you're a new parent, nothing feels solid. Every moment feels like a test. And every time another child moves ahead, it feels like you've been left behind. It's not about competition, it's about confirmation. The need to know you're doing okay. This is the genius of the episode, that it sees this pressure for what it really is. Not selfishness, but love under stress. Because when your child isn't keeping up, you don't just worry about them. You start to worry about you. But then, something changes. Not because Bluey walks, but because Chilli stops running. She stops chasing some invisible finish line, stops measuring her value in other people's victories. And that shift, that tiny internal release, doesn't come from a doctor or a parenting book. It comes from another mother, Coco's mom, a woman with 8 children and a home that's messy, lived in, real. She doesn't offer advice, she doesn't compare or correct. She simply sees Chilli, sees her trying, sees her tired, and she says what every overwhelmed parent secretly longs to hear: "You're doing great." That's it. No judgment, no suggestions, just permission to stop panicking. And it's that moment, that whisper of empathy, that turns everything. Because the truth is, every parent is a beginner, even the experienced ones. even the confident ones. We're all learning as we go, building the plane as it flies, loving as best we can. And sometimes, all we need is for someone else to say, "I see you, and you're doing just fine." But there's another layer to Baby Race that sits quietly beneath the surface. It's not just about Chilli navigating her own doubts. It's also about what those doubts pass down. When Bluey asks, "Am I better than her?" she's not just making a playground observation. She's voicing a pattern that often begins early. The idea that our value is tied to being ahead, being first, being better. And while Chilli gently redirects her, we understand where that instinct comes from, because we've watched her live through it. That's the subtle message here. Our children absorb more than just our habits. They pick up on our fears, our expectations, and even our self-doubt. Not because we speak it aloud, but because it lingers in how we look at them, how we react, and what we emphasize. Chilli's story shows us that children learn how to feel about themselves partly by watching how we feel about them and how we feel about ourselves. But the beautiful part is that self-awareness changes the pattern. Chilli doesn't deny her past insecurities or pretend she had it all figured out. Instead, she shares them openly. She tells the story not as a cautionary tale, but as a moment of connection, a way of saying, "I've been there too." And in doing that, she offers Bluey something she didn't have in the moment: perspective without pressure, reassurance without comparison, not a lesson to win, but a memory to grow from. This is how emotional legacies shift, not through perfection, but through reflection. What Chilli models is something deeply human, the ability to look back with honesty and then move forward with more kindness, both for her child and for herself. By retelling this story, she's not just helping Bluey understand her own journey, she's quietly giving her permission to take life at her own pace, to not be defined by someone else's timeline, and to know that being loved has never depended on being first. That message about pacing, presence, and quiet growth doesn't just live in the dialogue. It lives in the details too. Because Bluey has always known how to speak through symbols. And in Baby Race, those symbols are everywhere, gently reinforcing the story's heart, if you're paying attention. Take the kitchen, for instance. It's not a flashy setting. It's not a place where you'd expect something big to happen. But it's where Bluey takes her first steps, not on a stage, not with a crowd watching, just in the middle of daily life. Crumbs on the floor, dishes in the sink, light coming through the window. And somehow, that makes perfect sense. Because it wasn't about the perfect moment. It was about the familiar one, the safe one. She saw something she wanted, and in that ordinary space, she felt ready. That detail, walking in the kitchen, quietly reminds us that growth doesn't always happen under pressure. Sometimes it happens when we're at ease, when we're not being pushed or measured, when we're simply surrounded by love and comfort. And then there's the olive oil. It's a funny moment in the episode, Chilli, clearly a little frantic, rubbing it on Bluey's knees as if that might magically get her crawling. It makes us laugh, but it's also so recognizable because most parents at some point reach for something, anything, to help their child along, even if it doesn't really make sense. That moment captures the mix of love and worry that so often drives our actions. Wanting to help, wanting to feel in control, trying to fix something that maybe isn't a problem at all. And of course, there's Bluey's signature move, the bum shuffle, not the expected way to get around. But it worked for her. The episode never treats it as wrong. It just shows it as another path. Some kids crawl, some walk early, some shuffle or roll or take their time, and that's the point. There's no one right way to get where you're going. What matters is that you keep going, in your own time, in your own way. And for a show like Bluey, that's more than a metaphor. It's a quiet message of reassurance for kids, for parents, for anyone who needs to hear it. Oh, and if no one's told you yet today, you're doing great.